Attendee could be stepping in.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Megan Roberts. We begin in the Northwest Territories, where Fort Smith residents are sharing messages of gratitude and well wishes as a local airline scales back operations. Northwestern Air says its final scheduled flight will be on January 16th, 2025, though it will still provide charters. It's the only airline operating in Fort Smith, and as the CBC's Nadir Hashmi reports, residents are sad to see it go.
A Fort Smith resident still remembers the day Northwestern Air saved Christmas. Brittany Scott was flying home from Calgary and the flight kept getting delayed. At one point, Scott realized she's not going to make the connection from Edmonton to Fort Smith NWT. It was December 23, 2011. The next flight to Fort Smith wouldn't be until after Christmas. In university at the time, Scott was with a few other Fort Smith students.
So if we missed that day, it was like, okay, we're going to be spending Christmas in a hotel in Edmonton. I think someone's mom called Brian Harold and explained the situation. We're like, I know it's like a big ask, but can you hold the flight back maybe an hour or two?
No problem, Brian said, who is the airline's current vice president and son of founder Terry Harold.
I always think about that as like such a small town, like northern thing. Like you're not going to get that level of service anywhere else, right?
Another Fort Smith resident and former MLA says Northwestern Air has been an icon in the community.
It's been a business that's done exemplary in their service. They've donated so much to the community, so much to individuals and to the organizations for over the past 50 years that they started.
Jewel adds that the Harold family, who ran the airline, showed great compassion towards the community, and it's sad news to see their business leave. The airline has been operating in Fort Smith since 1965, and now that operations are scaling back, they say Air Tindi could be stepping in to the service gap. Nadir Hashmi, CBC News, Yellowknife.
A small cluster of trailers along the Ingram Trail near Yellowknife are the focus of a battle over Indigenous land rights. In a case that dates back more than a decade, the occupants say they have an Indigenous right to settle the land. The Northwest Territories government says they're trespassing. The CBC's Richard Gleason brings us this update.
The case was back in court in Yellowknife this week. Agnes Christensen and her son Clayton say that as members of the Denenukwe First Nation, they have a right to settle on the land near the turnoff to the Daa Road. They point out that in Treaty 8, the Crown promised to give First Nation members collectively owned settlement lands, but also gave treaty members who want to go a different route the right to select 160 acres of land each to call their own. The Christensens say they're simply exercising that right. They're trying to launch a class action lawsuit to defend theirs and other Treaty 8 members' right to select their 160 acres each. In their arguments, they refer to the recently negotiated draft Acacho Agreement in Principle. The draft is one of the last stages leading to a final agreement, something that's been in the works for decades. The federal and territorial governments are asking the courts to remove that from the court file, saying it's confidential. They're also suggesting that the law firm that's representing the Christensens in the trespass case is in a conflict of interest by also taking on the proposed class action. The judge has reserved her decision on both issues. Richard Gleason, CBC News, Yellowknife.
2 RCMP officers have been cleared by Alberta's police watchdog in the violent arrest of Athabasca Chippewa First Nation Chief Alan Adam. In March of 2020, Adam was stopped for having an expired license plate while he was leaving a Fort McMurray casino. The Alberta Serious Incident Response Team investigated what happened next. It says Adam adopted a fighting stance and swore at an officer during the interaction. It says he was later tackled to the ground and punched by another officer. Adam has accused the police of assault and racial profiling. He was initially charged with resisting arrest and assaulting an officer, but those charges were dropped. The Alberta Serious Incident Response Team concluded the officers were lawfully placed and acting properly. It says there's also nothing to suggest racism played a part in Adam's arrest. Brian Barash was Adam's lawyer at the time and says this report is disappointing.
How could it be that the top chief enforcement officer in this province decides charges are not warranted? But when we look at how those charges came about, ACERT decides there shouldn't even be a trial. I think it's unacceptable.
That was Brian Barash, who worked as a lawyer for Athabasca Chippewan First Nation Chief Alan Adam. Today, mail officially arrived in Sax Harbor NWT. The community's co-op serves as the post office. Its general manager says she got the call earlier this week that her store can once again begin accepting parcels. The NWT's most northern community relies on the postal service for all goods they can't get locally. John Lucas Jr. is the chair of the Sax Harbor Community Corporation, and he says he expects the incoming shipment to be huge.
It really just disrupted the community. Like, people are getting regular mail, they get their parcels in the mail, especially before Christmas. A lot of people most people shop on Amazon and other online stores, and there must be a mountain of Sax Harbor mail sitting somewhere. I'm actually waiting for some parcels as well. So yeah, the Canada Post strike really affected the community big time.
The Canada Post strike first began on November 15th. Workers were ordered back on the job this week. The Yukon is getting new funding for green energy so people can get rebates to retrofit their homes. For the next 3 years, Yukoners can apply for money to install electric heating systems. Over $3 million is available of combined federal and territorial dollars. Each household is eligible for a maximum of $24,000. Officials also announced that a Yukon-based company will receive $1 million. Earthrise Building Services won the money through a call for proposals from the Yukon government. The company plans to build a retrofit strategy by grouping similar homes into one cohesive large-scale project. That's so multiple retrofits can happen at the same time and more efficiently.
So there's a lot of inefficiencies. I guess that's my point. There's a lot of inefficiencies, and we're really looking at ways where we can cut that fat out of the system and bring the price down for these projects, because they're too expensive right now. And we need to bring the price down. And so that's a big part of what we're looking at, is developing this roadmap. And I think that's what Epi Haley mentioned, developing these roadmaps for not only, what is the state of it today, but how can we change it? And what are some concrete actions that we can implement? And we've got a bunch of great ideas.
That was the CEO of Yukon-based Earthrise Building Services. Nunavut's new senator was appointed earlier today. Nancy Karatek-Lindell will be the territory's representative in the Senate. Karatek-Lindell was the first person to represent the federal riding of Nunavut when it was renamed from Nunatsiaq in 1997. Karatek-Lindell also served as the president of the Inuit Circumpolar Council Canada. She says her immediate priority is always the same when she takes on a new challenge.
It's to be the voice for people who haven't always had a voice, to find out what the issues are that are most pressing for the people of the North, getting to know the job and finding out the different procedural ways that I'm going to have to work in. It will be a little different than the House of Commons, and it's been some time since I've been the Member of Parliament, so familiarizing myself with work and how best to use my office to take care of issues that need to be taken care of.
Karatek-Lindell will be replacing Dennis Patterson, who retired in 2023. CBC News has learned that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is set to announce a major cabinet shuffle tomorrow. There's been turmoil within the Liberal caucus, and a number of ministers have left. Several of the Prime Minister's frontbenchers have been doing double, even triple duty. It all comes as calls for Trudeau to resign get louder. Ashley Burke takes a look at what we can expect.
The Prime Minister is still nowhere to be seen, holed up in his office as calls grow louder from some of his own MPs to resign and cabinet ministers trying to fend off questions about it.
There's a lot of discussions about what is going to transpire or not. I cannot provide you clarity and answers about people's futures.
But as Justin Trudeau reflects on his future, he also has a country to run and a major crisis to deal with, Donald Trump's tariff threats. Sources say he's shuffling his cabinet tomorrow after 8 ministers in recent months said they're retiring or stepping down.
I want to spend more time with my kids. And
on Monday, the housing minister called it quits, and in a stunning move, Trudeau's finance minister resigned. Sources said the Prime Minister told Chrystia Freeland he wanted to put former Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney into the job, but he hadn't said yes. When Freeland stepped down, it sent the government into a tailspin, scrambling for a replacement. Sources said Minister François-Philippe Champagne took himself out of the running for the job before Trudeau offered it to Dominic LeBlanc, who now says Carney is out.
Mr. Carney isn't about to become Canada's finance minister in the short term. The Prime Minister asked me to start that work and to get ready for a budget in the spring.
Sources say Trudeau's cabinet shuffle tomorrow is consequential and involves at least 10 people. Have you been told at all?
I read it in the news, and speculation is speculation, and we'll see. I got no idea.
But since his comment yesterday, CBC News and Radio-Canada have learned he's being tapped for housing minister and David McGuinty as public safety minister. This cabinet shuffle is one way for the Prime Minister to try and calm the waters and buy himself more time to figure out if he'll stay or go. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
Alcoholics Anonymous. We're here to help. For more information, visit aa.org and download the Meeting Guide app.
Earth is our collective home. That makes us all family. As family, we strive to love and protect each other. Diversity of species is our strength. We are all connected. We survive and thrive together. We celebrate many things this season and make many choices. Taking care of our family should be the easiest. We're in this together.
Being there means being here. Russian forces, they want it badly. It's just a fraction of the mess here in Port aux Basques. To witness, to listen, to share. I'm so sorry. I do worry about them. Adrian Arsenault reports on CBC News, stream free.
We're often drawn to people who have something we want in ourselves.
But it doesn't mean living like you're running out of time. It means living in a place of hope.
Legislation making it faster and easier to identify and release innocent people from prison received royal assent this week. An independent body will be established to review wrongful conviction applications. It's a bittersweet moment for the woman who lobbied for this change. She's the sister of David Milgaard. He spent 23 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. Chris Glover has more.
This is a ring that he bought himself, though.
A subtle yet powerful symbol that's pushed Susan Milgaard to keep up the fight to make Canada's justice system more just.
He's with me all the time. I'll be doing something, and then the ring will move and it will give me strength.
In 1969, Susan was 14 when her 16-year-old brother David was convicted of rape and murder in Saskatoon. He spent 23 years in prison until ultimately being exonerated. For decades, his family fought for an independent review board to investigate potential cases of the wrongfully convicted. Their efforts have finally paid off. Changes are being made to the criminal code.
I'm really happy I'm actually very sad because Mom and David aren't here to see it. So I still have the original.
You got the original?
Yes.
Prior to this, the only avenue was to appeal directly to Canada's Justice Minister, a rare and laborious effort.
It's going to ensure that the experience of the Milgaard family is not repeated.
Justice Minister Arif Virani touting the new law at the Toronto offices of Innocence Canada, a nonprofit currently working on some 130 cases of potential miscarriages of justice.
Do your best to get it right, because if you don't, David and Joyce Milgaard's law is lurking, waiting to correct justice.
The group's co-president, Ron Dalton, spent 8.5 years in prison for murder. He was exonerated after winning on appeal.
What we're now trying to do is make sure we find better ways to catch it and fix it much more quickly, so we can all have some confidence in our justice system.
The new law requires convicts exhaust appeal processes before turning to the independent commission.
It may not have actually affected my particular case, but many of the other cases we would have dealt with much faster.
The Justice Minister says it will take time to hire the commissioners, but he's committed to it.
Every single day is another day that how many wrongfully convicted are still in prison.
Even though you might think her advocacy is over.
Not just David and Mum are keeping an eye on him, I will be too.
Susan says she'll be watching closely to ensure what's now in law actually comes into practice. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
The chief of the First Nation of Notchonayak Dun is worried about a tungsten mine planned for her territory after the heap leach failure at Yukon's Eagle Gold Mine this spring. Donna Hope is also concerned about the tungsten being used in weapons. She says the Notchonayak Dun passed a resolution a decade ago against mining uranium for the same reason.
Given the Notchonayak Dun's recent experience, the prospect of rampant expansion of mining in our traditional territory is deeply frustrating and profoundly upsetting.
Hope says her First Nation found out about the plan to develop the Mactung mine a week before it was announced. Canada and the U.S. are spending $35 million to develop roads, electrical infrastructure, and feasibility studies. That money is going to Fireweed Metals, the company that owns Mactung. Construction of the Daa Ice Road in the NWT started yesterday, and the road is expected to open next week. The NWT Department of Infrastructure says it takes about 5 to 7 days to clear the snow and build the road. That means it could open by December 24th, which is on par with the 20-year average. Last year, the road didn't open until the end of January, making it the latest opening of the Daa Winter Ice Road on record. And a road report from the NWT's Department of Infrastructure indicates that northern sections of the Sawtoo Winter Road could be open as soon as tomorrow. That includes from Norman Wells to Fort Good Hope, the Colville Lake Access Road, and the Delaunay Access Road. The Samba Cay Winter Road will be inspected for opening on Monday, and the Mackenzie River Ice Crossing at Toledo is expected to be open by December 24th. It's 2 weeks in, and the new curbside recycling program in Whitehorse is going well. The city launched the program after a nonprofit that used to handle household recycling stopped providing the service because of the cost. Now, the city is picking up recyclables at most houses in Whitehorse. The owner of the company contracted to do the job says things are mostly going well, but he says there is still a little confusion about what goes to the curb and what does not.
So the big ones are soft plastics are out. With the modern recycling regime, soft plastics really aren't that recyclable. They're hard on equipment. They're hard on sorting lines. So a lot of people still want to put it into bags, clear bags, and that's just not the case anymore.
Lang says it's important to sort recyclables properly. That's to ensure as much material as possible actually gets recycled. New sealskin kamit and mitts were proudly displayed by women in Arvit. They were part of the fur production course of 2024. The CBC's Selma Eccles was at their graduation.
Sheila Okatsiak was one of the students in Arvit's fur production course. She, like many of the students, never got an opportunity to learn everything from cleaning, scraping, drying, and getting the seal skin ready. Ukatchiak says she enjoyed learning and making 2 pairs of kamik for herself and her daughter. She says one of my younger sisters took a sewing course and it made me want to take the course because I really wanted to learn how to sew. Sarah Auladjut is another student in the program. She made her first pair of kamiks for her 14-year-old daughter. Auladjut says her daughter started crying when she received the kamiks. She says, first time for her to ever own a pair of sealskin kamiks. She cherishes them. She puts them on anytime she's going out. You can just see that she is so proud of them. 8 students completed the program and showcased their sewing at the Kukbik Fashion Show. Salma Echo, CBC News, Rankin Inlet.
Seeing the Nutcracker is a holiday season tradition for many people around the world. But for one Canadian woman, it's more than that. She was so inspired by the classical ballet, she started collecting actual nutcrackers more than 60 years ago. And today, her collection is nothing short of spectacular.
I started in 1962. My first nutcracker when my husband and I got married. And it's grown since then. I'm Gloria Archer, and I'm the one who collects all these nutcrackers. I think a lot of them started with the ballet, the Nutcracker Ballet that comes out every Christmas. And I love the music and the dancing, and I started with one little one, and it just kind of grew from there. I get them for gifts for my kids. And I have a very special one here, and my granddaughter's going to kill me. But she did this for me when she was 3 years old. And I just love it. Well, my oldest grandson wanted to become a chef, which he did eventually. And my husband used to do a lot of woodworking, and there's the chef and the 2 nutcrackers that are like woodworking people. And that was given to me by my grandson, my oldest grandson. My granddaughter keeps counting them for me every year, and I think I have somewhere between 100. I usually start about the middle of October, putting the nutcrackers up. Yeah, I set them all up, and I try to set them up when, like, you know, that the nutcracker over there, that's from the ballet, so that's all of them there together, and then like the ones that I got from my grandson, and you know, trying to keep them into a set. You know, like anybody's collection, that they like things and they enjoy them, that's why they collect them. And I love Christmas. Christmas is my thing.
It's a pretty incredible collection. Another Christmas tradition, of course, are holiday lights shining bright across the country. But as Robin Miller shows us, some families can be a lot more intense about it than others.
Everybody come out quick, look at the lights!
Move over, Clark Griswold. Sean Turcott is in town.
I believe we have the brightest house in the city. I know because I pay the hydro bills. We have completely maxed out our electrical capacity.
With movie quality props, lifelike cutouts, quotes,
"Is your house on fire, Clark?"
and 7,500 bulbs, the home is hard to beat.
The great pride that we have is we've stuck with the old-fashioned lights. These are the old-fashioned glass incandescent C9 bulbs that we all grew up with back in the day.
But it's not the only decked-out house in the city. Taffy Lane is a must-visit. Nearly every house gets in the spirit.
It's just special. It's Christmassy. It's if you don't believe, come to Taffy Lane. You'll believe.
It has the latest, the greatest, but also the most nostalgic. Like here, where these Santas represent tradition.
My nanny passed away 5 years ago, a week before Christmas, so I kind of do it for her and for other seniors and families and kids to come for a free activity and forget about all your worries in the world.
Leaving your worries behind. It's also easy here with a custom-built Ferris wheel.
It started a few years ago. I just, started, looking at the house and thinking, well, I need a few more lights. And so a few more lights became a few more lights, and then it kind of grew from there.
The snowball effect. It happens a lot.
We started off small, and then it just kind of blew up from there. A big part of our display is we wanted that family feel.
ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas!
Their elaborate display even has approval from the man himself.
I think this display is quite magical. It gets the ho, ho, ho of approval.
Back in Stittsville, the Turcotte say, sadly, this will be their last year.
So right now, it still feels awesome and the same feeling of fulfillment that we've always had because there's so many people still coming. Afterwards in January, I think it'll sink in that that's it.
Which means the title for Best and Brightest will be up for grabs next year. Robin Miller, CBC News, Ottawa.
The timing of the snow was perfect. The snow came before Christmas, and so I was trying to figure out how do you bring a smile to people's faces, and so Santa came to mind, and that's how that one came around this year. So this one took about just over 25 hours from the start to the end, so it wasn't too bad. So one of the inspirations actually happened last year is, again, when I was working at it, if you want to call it work, it's more like playing. I sort of remembered how much fun I had as a kid. And so that's what sort of provoked the thought of, well, if I'm having this much fun and having these kind of memories, how can the community benefit? And so that's how the Big Brothers and Sisters sort of came along. And having worked with Scouts, I saw how kids enjoy doing the outdoors and that. So I thought, hey, why not spread some of the cheer and the happiness? And they do a great program. And the kids were great here when they were here on Saturday, and the smiles on their faces. It's great, the kind of programs that the funding helps them do. So as I was sitting working, I saw people driving by, taking their kids out, taking pictures. So it's actually kind of neat to see them smiling and taking pictures. So it's been pretty nice. It's pretty nice.
That was Bron Nurkowski in Regina. He was showing us the massive snow sculpture in his front yard. He's been doing this for 4 years. And as you heard there, he's also raising money, and that's for the Regina Big Brothers and Sisters. Now, let's take a look at the weather. And that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, go to cbc.ca/north. Thank you for watching. I'm Megan Roberts. Have a good night.
How can any of this be fair?
Now you might think, hey, we just need more doctors, but that's not really it.
Russian scheme here.
Shows you where it starts, where it ends.
Were you really willing to risk that job? Yes.
At Thunder Bay's favorite festival, Wake the Giant.
Ta-da! There it is.
Stream anytime. CBC News.
This is CBC North on your smart TV, because CBC News is now streaming local. Local news and weather on your connected TV or favorite device. CBC News North, streaming now.
I've been waiting 8 years for this moment. It feels like magical. I'm still like pinching myself.
Bakers, now you are finally here.
You're gonna regret this.
You tried to kill my son.
You're the one who tried to kill him. It's all my fault.
Coronation Street. Watch free on CBC Gem.
I want to have a brew.